Welcome to the Inner-Fight Q&A show 35, and I'm on my own. We have currently a load of guys racing in Sri Lanka doing the 70.3 there, so Flanners is on coach duty and has taken the... I don't think he minds too much travelling over to that area of the world, but yeah, he's taken on the role of coach over there, and currently, actually we're recording this now on a Sunday, and the guys are racing and I'm getting all the alerts coming through and they're absolutely killing it. So it's really cool to see. And we'll have some results for you by the end of, well, when this show comes out, you'll certainly know what happened. So, Naked Running Band still sponsoring the show, Inner-Fight 15. And we are generally still getting people asking which is the best running band to use. And this is the one. You slip it on, it goes around your waist. It has two sections. 2 bits of elastic, and then you just put in the things that you want, your water, your keys, your phone, just slide in between the 2 sections, and you barely know you have it, and it's brilliant. Great bit of kit. And Ultra X, which we have a code for to get you £200 off any of their racers with Inner FSL 19, which is going along the bottom there for you to remember. We have some guys going there, and they will all be using the Naked Running Band to run that with. So that's really cool. Right, we have 3 questions this week. One we've answered a few times, but there's a little slight change to it. And 2 are to do with climbing, as last week was quite a big climbing week for myself. Went to Jebel Jais and did the Everest Challenge there, which was awesome. About 15 hours of riding to get the 8,850 meters of climbing in, which was over 320 kilometers. So that sparked a few climbing questions, which I'm more than happy to answer. So let's get started. First of all, from @Matu Pruliak, which we also know as Matt, who's French Matt, who actually lives in Singapore. He's asked, what strategies/changes to adopt for racing in the heat and humidity? So we've done a lot of heat questions. Obviously, being Dubai based, we get a lot of heat here. We don't tend to get that much humidity. We do at certain points in the year, but I know over like more in Asia way, and like for example now in Sri Lanka, it's going to be very hot and humid, and it's the same within Singapore with Matt. So what's the change that humidity gives alongside the heat? And it's essentially, it just makes it harder to cool down because you're wet from outside the skin before you've even started, because the air is a lot wetter there. So in terms of strategy and changes, it's pretty similar to what we recommend for when people are first coming over and training in the heat here. You need to bring your training down a little bit just to get used to the performance decrease that you get initially, because your body is trying to cool down, keep you cooler before trying to perform. So you need to make sure that your training has been adjusted in order for you to train consistently and get the adaptations that you need in training while also getting used to the new environment. So Matt's been there long enough now, I'm sure he's taken that into account, but now if the real humid season's coming along and he needs a further benefit, mate, you need to, as well as being here, just make sure hydration is constantly on the forefront of your list. So taking on extra minerals and salts within your water. You can get like Elite Drops, and there are other brands out there, but we use Elite Drops here. Training with that all the time, and then also refueling with it as well. So once you finish a session, making sure you're taking on a considerable amount of water with drops in, so that you have electrolytes in your body and re-establishing that homeostasis that your body looks for. Otherwise, you just won't be recovering properly and you'll be in a constantly dehydrated state. Other things that might need changing that are a bit more practical for you, kit-wise, you want to wear stuff that doesn't hold on to water. So if you're sweating a lot and you've got the more moisture from the air and it clings onto your kit, that's going to create like a damp environment for you to be in for your skin, which will be harder for it to cool down unless you're going down a nice long hill and you've got a bit more breeze on you. So using fabrics that are very thin and let water go pass through them, essentially. A lot of people would sometimes think to wear like rain jackets and stuff, but actually you just create an inside environment between your skin and the jacket, and it doesn't let you breathe. So you get hotter as you're going. So really breathable stuff that lets water pass through it a lot. And then you'll also, as normal, you're probably going to be working at a higher capacity. So actually you'll need to think about fueling your sessions maybe a little bit differently to as you normally would. So normally if it's a temperature you can handle and you're working at a work capacity that you can get away with without needing to take on too much energy or fuel, say like a zone 2 ride, then you would look at taking on a little bit more energy because it's going to be harder for you to be into that normal zone 2 if you're working with, say, power. And that's just, again, down to a reduced performance because of the increase in how hard it is for your body to work within the environment. But if you've trained well and consistently and done that from the start, you shouldn't have too much issues, which brings me to my last point of it, which is essentially it comes down to being comfortable in your mind within that environment. So one thing we get here is people can sometimes feel a bit suffocated, and especially with humidity, that is also going to be added into the effect. So just you've gone through hopefully hard enough sessions before the race. You've got comfortable that what your body can go to and what it feels like when you are going past the point of comfort in terms of heat and overheating. Just have it in your mind, you're going to be fine, and that's pretty much all the advice I have for it. Get comfortable in your head and you'll be okay. Good, moving on. Next two questions are from the same man at Mo_Hyman. I haven't had a question for a while from Mo, so this is good. Obviously got some climbing planned. In addition to frequently riding in the mountains, is there any other way to improve climbing? So here we have options of mountains, but you have to drive between an hour up to 3 hours if you want to go and ride on them. The normal rides here in Dubai, and that's where Mo is on flat. You won't do over like 300 meters, over like 100k. So a lot of people here, if they're going to go race a hillier race, do two things. One is turbo training. So you can simulate climbs through putting it in a hard gear, basically on a turbo, and pushing a low cadence. We're looking around between 50 to 65 RPM, we would class as a low cadence. And that's obviously what you're going to be using when climbing, because you have to work harder to go up the hill, so therefore your cadence is slowed down because you can't spin up to a higher gear. So that would be one way, is doing some over-geared, basically strength work. It's leg strength work on the bike. You can also do it on the road, but you'd normally, to get that low enough cadence in a hard enough gear, you'd need to time it in with a bit of a headwind. That normally helps to do that. So that would be how to train for mountains if you haven't got mountains to train on. The next question, or next part to his question, is what percentage of FTP should he be riding at when doing 100k in the hills, and also what is the best cadence? To answer the cadence question, that kind of doesn't come into play too much on the hills. You're going to be at a low cadence because you're climbing. So if you feel like you work better at a higher cadence, then you might look to adjust your gears. So get a compact on the front and go to a 30 or a 32 on the back. They would be climbing gears. So if you'd rather spin around at about 80 to 85, then that would be a way of being able to do that. In terms of percentage of FTP, that kind of depends, mate. So if you're doing just 100k, then you can go up to working between 85 to 90%, I would say. But if you're doing it as part of a triathlon, you need to be able to stick back to between 78 to 80, 82, possibly, if you're a stronger biker. So percentage of FTP really comes down to what it is that you're doing the race for, if you are racing. If it's just a normal ride, then what's the goal of the ride? That would be a difficult one to answer without a few more details behind it. And also percentage of FTP is fine, but we'll actually look at normalized power when in the hills, because you might be producing a lot of power going up the hill, but then when you're coming down, you're not producing anything. So your average power gets a little bit deceiving. So we'd look at normalized to see what your actually average over the whole ride is when what it comes to. But yeah, to know what percent of FTP would be a difficult thing to answer without a bit more context to that. And hopefully the cadence question helped as well. The answer to that helped. Good, that is it. End of the show. Next week we'll be back Flanners will be back. We'll be back to normal, and we'll see you then. Thanks, guys.